So we're talking about jealousy today. And jealousy is one of those interesting things. I was sitting with it this morning, just not the feeling, but the thought about it, to kind of prepare a little bit for the talk. And I was realizing jealousy is one of these emotions that doesn't really exist. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like money. We think the value of money exists, right? That somewhere along the way, some, consensus was made that said, this is what this is worth. This piece of paper or this silver coin. But actually, it's arbitrary. It's based on what maybe a mass of people or a few people actually say this is the value, and then we just take it. We're like, yes, okay, that's what jealousy or that's what money or what value is. And with jealousy, the reason I was thinking that it doesn't seem to really exist other than as an arbitrary creation of something is that you can't point at it, right? Like most emotions, actually. You can't really point and go, there it is, there's the jealousy, let me just get rid of it. I'll throw it outside. Whew! Overcame it. Thank God. Right? You can't do that. And it's because it's tied to something else. And that is the point of these talks, is how can we dig deeper and find out where's the root of whatever it is that we're feeling, that we're acting out of, the behaviors and habits that we hold in life, the conditioning that we might take on. Where's the root of it? And when jealousy, it's an interesting one because most of the time we're going to think, well, it's happening outside of me, right? I'm jealous of that, or they're jealous of me, or something happened externally that made me jealous. How many of you, by the way, have ever been jealous? Good. We're honest in here. I'm glad. And how many of you, like her up here, have been the victim of jealousy? Somebody was jealous of you. How many just didn't know they were? I think all of us at some point in our lives were standing in between someone that we wanted something from, or someone that wanted something from us, right? And in that sense, this comparison that we do in life and society, this is where jealousy and envy come from, right? It begins by comparing ourselves and looking to see, okay, what does that person have that I don't? Or what do I have that person might be taking from me? Ever think about that? With jealousy, I think that's more what it is. It's what we're afraid of losing. It's what we're afraid that maybe if we share, that it would be taken away. Especially in relationships or friendships, in any form of relation. I think that's where jealousy is stemming from, is this fear of loss. Which is interesting because most of the time it means that it was something you never had in the first place. If you're afraid of losing, it's probably because you never actually had it. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Most of the time, especially in relationships, we don't choose relationship. When we choose something in life, then we choose it and we cultivate towards it, right? You choose to come and do yoga and you're going to cultivate your practice. And then you know that at some point, let's say you're doing some inversion, you know that if you fall, you're not going to fall hard because you cultivated up to that point so that you could come down soft. But most of the time in life, we haven't chosen and then cultivated. We took something by chance, right? In relationships especially. I think a lot of times we just kind of let them happen. How many of you can relate to that? Where you didn't really say, yes, I am committing. Ooh, scary word, right? I am committing to this relation. Very few people do that. Most of the time, whenever I see people here in town especially, and I see them starting to connect, and maybe they're both friends of mine, and I'll ask, oh, are you guys, something going on? Are you guys in a relation now? They're like, oh, I don't know, we're just seeing. We're seeing where it goes. They're waiting to see how it happens to them instead of through them. And I can already tell you, it doesn't go anywhere. Because everything in life requires you to choose it, to claim it as, yes, that is what I'm committed to, creating from my life. And when you do that, there isn't really this background fear that says, wait, somebody else gave it to me, or the world gave it to me, or life gave it to me. I was lucky to get this relationship. Wait, what if somebody else takes it? Or what if this person chooses somebody else? And again, that's where this insecurity around jealousy comes up. This feeling that we might lose this person because we never chose to be there, and maybe also they never chose to be there. That's the bigger one, probably. Right? So maybe the first invitation of how we get to overcome jealousy is how we get to avoid it in the first place. Choose intentionally the actions, the pathways, the processes, the journeys, the interactions that you have in life. Choose them intentionally, rather than by convenience or by default. Give you another example. How many of you especially here in Bali, it's a very social environment. Maybe you were sitting at a cafe and you saw somebody and you're like, oh, I'd like to talk to that person. And then a little voice in your head was like, well, I'll wait till it's more convenient. Maybe they're sitting next to me, or I see them in a yoga class, or I've seen them 12 times, and then maybe I'll be like, hey, I keep seeing you. Weird, huh? Right? What would happen if you were just intentional and you were like, oh, I want to talk to that person. Hi, what's your name? Right? You just go up. You might look weird, but that's okay. Because if they're weird too, then you made a friend. Right? When we're intentional about something, we do something extra within that. Not only are we choosing something, but we're giving somebody else the possibility of choice as well. We're giving somebody else the possibility of choice as well. And that's probably one of the most powerful and valuable exchanges that we can do in life. And when we do that, there isn't this sense of jealousy, which is by comparison, because you're saying, hey, I choose to talk to you right now. And then if he says, I choose to talk to you, look, everybody else is gone. There is no comparison to be had. There's the choice that's been made. That makes sense? I'll use the example with Christina and I. Right? In our own path and process of relating, and we've been together about 6.5 years now, there's definitely been moments where we had our insecurities come up. And at one point, we really started to think about how is it that we're choosing this relationship? Actually, it was very much at the beginning that we did this. Because I think we go through stages when we interact with other people. And the stages are, I need them, I want them, I choose them. Right? I need, you see somebody, you're like, oh, I have to talk to that person. I need to, my survival is based on it. I will die if I don't get to meet this person. And then you survive through the day and you're like, oh, okay, I don't need this, but I do want it. And we're going to want a lot of things in life, right? I imagine that not just in how you relate to people, but maybe even in a buffet of food. You want a lot of different things. Be like, I only got so much size in the stomach. I have to choose. Right? And we do the same thing in life, but we have to realize that in the choice, there's a power behind it. That power is how we're going to avoid jealousy later on. Because in choosing it, instead of just being like, oh, okay, well, this is what's convenient right now. This is working out. Because when we do that, then what are we sending as a message to the other person? As soon as something else more convenient comes along, I'm gone. Jealousy isn't so much about how we feel about someone else or some interaction that's happening. It's the insecurity we're feeling inside of us about losing that person or thing or achievement or goal or position, whatever it is. You can look in corporate life, this probably happens a lot, right? It's a very comparative field. Where instead of going, look, I've done the work and I've built the skill sets and these different things, and it's not by my achievements, but by my consistency that I have created value in this corporation and workplace. And so then you don't have fear if you get let go. Because you still have those skill sets and that value, and you just go and you use it somewhere else. But if you've been busy proving yourself the whole time, which is what most of us are doing in life, we're busy proving ourselves as being the better choice instead of the choice. I'm going to say that again. We are busy trying to prove ourselves to be the better choice instead of simply being a choice. It's coming back to what Christina and I did at the very beginning of our relationship. Because we recognized that choice was so powerful, we actually spent the first month, we said, okay, look, we don't know where this is really going to go, but we want to commit in. But when you say that to somebody, like, let's commit to being together. And there's this ambiguity of how long. And so the only thing that's over it is like, forever. Now we know why commitment sounds so scary for people. Because it's like, I can't guarantee that. I don't know if I can commit forever. I don't know if I'll be around forever. And so we said 30 days. Let's, for 30 days, 1 month, be 100% committed to each other, choosing each other above all others, above anything else that happens. We choose each other. If we get really upset because of something, great, we work through it because we chose. If something goes awry, we support each other. Right? And we did that for 30 days, and then at the end of 30 days, we sat down, we asked, do you choose to do it again? And we did it again, and then we did it again, and we did it again for like 6 to 7 months. Today, on the inside of our wedding band, it says, I choose you. Because it's truly one of the most powerful things that we can do in life. Choose what it is that you intentionally go towards. And then give that choice to another. And why is it important that the other one does it? Because when somebody else chooses you or chooses your project or chooses you for a position, whatever it is, when you haven't manipulated, created expectation or pressure or stress for that and created this obligation instead, but you actually allowed it to be a choice, well, now that person's also accountable for their choice. And they're going to do the most to invest in making it a productive and successful choice. That makes sense? When you choose or someone else chooses, they are investing. They're saying, I'm accountable for this, therefore the result I'm accountable for. So we loop back around to when jealousy starts to creep its mysterious little head. If you've been choosing all along the way, in the same way that you were developing, cultivating these skill sets in a job place, and all of a sudden you get to a point where things have changed. Because things always do change eventually in our lives. And sometimes we evolve together, sometimes we evolve apart. That's okay. It's part of life. But if you've been evolving and you've really just been meeting the other one in people-pleasing, well, you're going to be devastated. And that entire time, you're afraid of losing that person because you've not developed any foundation for yourself. You want to have footing for yourself to step upon so that when things change, if they change in your life, you don't fall all the way back to some beginning point and have the fear of a pattern being created that says, oh my God, this is how it's always going to be now. But rather, you've already seen a pattern for yourself that you chose. And so something changes, it's easy. You go, oh, okay. Let me deal with it in this moment. It's not everything. It was just that last step, that last choice. So we're playing with this idea that jealousy isn't really so much about what might be happening outside, but what we're fearing would happen because of it. Right? The fear of loss. The fear of maybe looking at ourselves and thinking, oh, they must have chosen something different, or the fear that someone might be better than you. I'm going to say something very counterintuitive, but it's a reality. There are many people who are better than you in certain things. And there are many people who are not as good as you in certain other things. That's life. It's wonderful. That's how we have a diversity and why we get to count on the interactions of each other. Stop worrying about whether somebody's better than you. Instead, be making choices. Yoga is actually a really great place to look at this, and I think it's more envy that happens there than jealousy. But, you go in, and what's one of the first things the yoga instructor always says? This is your personal practice. It's not a competition. Don't look around. What's the first thing you do? And we can't help it. We're human beings. We still compare. And so you're in some position. It could be something as simple as like tree pose, and you're like standing there, and you're like, why has that person got their leg over their head? I should be able to do. They're better than I quit. Right? Or you get jealous of them. And here's the funny thing. You're like, oh, why can they do it and I can't? As if they were born that way. I mean, can you imagine that birth? Poor mother. Right? No, they cultivated it also. At some point in their life, they said, I choose to develop this practice. Be inspired rather than jealous. We create safety. That's actually the key, I think. When it comes to relationships or even in a workplace, it'd be amazing if bosses could do this for their employees and say, look, I can't guarantee that we're always going to employ you, but I'm not trying to test or judge you and get you out of here. Because that's kind of the thought that I think people are having when they're trying to prove themselves in different places. It's like, hey, you're here. We chose you. We hired you. Can you realize that that's how it is in everything that's going on? When you're in a place, even in a class, you chose that seat chose you. Right? You chose a partner, that partner chose you in some form. When you have that, and then you're consistent in it, that's the trick. Safety comes from consistency. A lot of times we want to have safety from certainty. Right? Do you guys know what the difference is? Certainty is, let's say again, a 9-to-5 job. You've got this corporate thing. It's what we were all sold on, many years back. Younger generations are more like, no, we don't do the 9-to-5. We're all entrepreneurs, right? But the 9-to-5 job was like, yes, you have a safe job. You know that you're always going to have your paycheck at the end of the month. That's safety. That's not safety. That's actually, you're telling yourself, I'm certain of it because they told me so. How many times have you been told something and then what they were telling you changed? And that's when we're like, oh, they betrayed me, they did this, they did that, all these things. I should have been jealous, blah, blah, blah. I was just, But the truth is that it simply was that instead of consistency, you were looking for certainty. Consistency is to say that every time that you walked into that workplace, or every time you came into that connection with somebody, that you were met in the same way with the same love, the same gratitude, the same appreciation, the same choosing of. Christina and I were talking about this just this morning, that so often in relationships, one of the biggest things that causes a fight, or even once you are already fighting and then that causes much more drama later, is that the relationship gets threatened. Right? You guys know that's a cardinal rule in conversations you have in a relationship, especially when it becomes an argument. Never threaten the relationship. It's one of the first places we go. Well, maybe this isn't working out. I saw you talking to that person over there. Maybe you just want to be with them. Whoa, threatening the relationship. No safety. So we have to create a consistency to create the safety. And that consistency is to say, hey, I saw you talking to that person over there. Still coming home with me? Yeah, great, okay. Safety, knowing that there's a pattern that's being developed because it was chosen. Now to do that, to create consistency, to create safety, to create a pattern, you need a container of time, don't you? You need a container of time, and that's commitment. That's really what commitment means. It's simply saying, hey, I'm going to take this container of time and space, and I'm dedicated to this choice. When you guys are at a crossroads in life, and you're trying to make that choice, right? How many of you have had that? Or maybe you're there right now. You're at the fork in the road, and you're like, I don't know which way I should go. Which one should I choose? And maybe the question on your mind is, what's the right choice? Yeah? Anybody? Yeah, I think that happens a lot, right? Super simple answer. The one you choose is the right choice. That's it. The one you choose is the right choice. You know why? Because as soon as you chose it, the choice is gone. There is no other choice anymore. And then you keep stepping forward on it. So when we're at those moments of decision, those moments of, and decision means decisive, right? You slice away everything else and that's the direction I'm going. But now you've got to give it some consistency to create that safety and also clarity, right? You can't do that and take one step and be like, oh, maybe it's not what I wanted. It's not exactly how I saw it before. Never mind. And you try going backwards, right? Try backtracking. You have to go, step in and be like, oh, okay. There were some aspects of this I wasn't expecting. Or this is a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be. Let me step again. Let me see. Let me choose a little deeper. Let me give it enough time to actually see where something is developing and cultivating. And also to actually grow. And I'll give you guys a really interesting way, a really powerful way to actually choose anything and know that you're always going to be moving in the direction that you want. You just look in that direction. Sounds so simple, right? Look in the direction of where you want to go. It seems logical, right? You want to know how most people are looking? Here's the thing that they want. It's somewhere in their future. And where are most people looking? In their future or in their past, right? Most people are looking backwards because it's familiar. You have certainty of your past because you know, or you think you know, exactly how it happened. Most of the time we don't even know how our past really happened. We have a perspective. But we think we have certainty that makes us think that we're safe. And we're like, no, but this happened like that, so I need to make sure it doesn't happen like that again, right? This goes a little bit to your fear of you don't want to get stuck thinking that. So I'm going to give you a secret move. This is what you do. Here's your past. There's your future. You do it. It's like a Michael Jackson move. You go, hee hee, right? You just turn around. Move your focus, because otherwise we're moving through life like this. Here's your past, there's your future. And you're like looking at the familiar and doing this. And for some reason you're like, I don't know why, but I'm unclear about where I'm headed. Yeah, turn around. Right? Most of us are tiptoeing. Again, not choosing, but just hoping by chance we get the right footing. By chance we find the right person. By chance we find the right job. Choose. When you do that, all of a sudden, two things happen. One, when you turn around, you start looking at your future. Imagine you're in a car. Right? How many of you ever rode in these old station wagons that had the seats in the back? And like, yeah, some of you, I love that, right? And they looked backwards, right? And so you would just see the world like going like this. It was really fun as a kid, but as an adult, if you're continuing to look at your past as everything is going away from you, what are you going to be focused on? Everything you're losing. And you're going to be afraid of that. And you're going to try to maneuver that way based on what's happening back here, instead of turning around and being like, oh, what's coming towards me? Because I chose to face this way, because I chose to walk in that direction. what's coming to me. And this starts to give us confidence and clarity. And that very quickly starts to take away the insecurity that is the root of jealousy. Because instead of thinking that something is being lost, we start to realize that something's always coming towards us. And we're always going towards something. And you can take it even another step and decide what that something is. Decide what it is that you want in life and for yourself and as yourself. Who do you want to be? How do you want to be? How do you want to feel? It's interesting because even as I ask these kind of questions, I think our minds come in and they're like, oh yeah, okay, well, how do I want to be and what do I want to have in life? Well, I want this. Okay, who's going to give it to me? No. It's not choose and then wait. Then you're still not doing it. Choose and then step forward. Show up. Cultivate. Take the actions toward what you want. Even if they have to begin from the very, very first rung of the ladder. Wonderful, do that. A lot of times we make the mistake of trying to make a great leap towards what we want, right? It's the overnight success or the, if I could only get that one business that I sell for $3 million to Facebook because I made some weird app, right? Even those people, they spent years making a bunch of apps that didn't work and were worthless, or many years or many proposals to try to even get investment to begin something. But we have in our minds, in the same way we compare that practice of somebody else in a yoga class, that, oh, they were just born like that. They just had it. They didn't do anything for it. Everything is a cultivation in life, sometimes consciously, most times unconsciously. Can you start to consciously cultivate towards what you want? And again, we bring this back to in relationship, let's say, in romantic relation. If we're feeling jealous because we see somebody talking to someone else, and we look and we think, well, that person is, having qualities maybe that would be better suited and better appreciating this person that I'm with. It would take a big person to really look at yourself and think that, right? And instead of putting your arms up and be like, okay, well, I guess they're the better person, I lost. No, you go, wonderful, how can I develop those qualities? See the difference? How many of you, and you can just, raise your hand or just wink at me, you don't need to be too open and public about this. How many of you, when you've been in partnership and your partner was talking to somebody and they were a very attractive person, did you compare and be like, oh shoot, like, I can't compete with that, right? And yet you can cultivate the beauty of what you want, not by some external agenda or aesthetic or things like that, but what is it that actually creates that beauty for you? And then hold that truth for yourself, right? Cultivate something, develop it, instead of comparing and thinking, I'm not enough because they're this. I can't tell you how often, especially when we look at the way beauty is seen in the media and things like that, for the most part, the way people look at beauty in a magazine, when you see that in real life, you're kind of like, well, that doesn't look realistic, that's weird, right? I want somebody I can relate to. And so don't fixate on what social media and filters and things like that are creating. But what is it for you? And that's why I say it's always a choice. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What is beauty going to be to you? And then here's the beauty of that is when you actually hold that and you choose it and you start to cultivate it, you start to shine and glow in a very unique way. One that cannot be compared against. One that there is no better or less. There is just you. There is a uniqueness. And you know what's amazing when there's a uniqueness? You can be chosen as such. We come back to choice. So we've been playing a lot with the word jealousy, but there was also this word overcoming in the title. Overcoming jealousy. Which means that probably you're already at the point where you're feeling this jealousy. It's maybe even consuming you because of something that's happened. First thing that I'll say, especially if it's in your past, again, don't dwell there. Because there's one truth I can tell you with certainty. You can't change the past. But you can change the direction you're going in. Right? The past gives you clues as to what the choices you made or didn't make or weren't conscious of, the results that they had. Now I'm going to put a little caveat to that, right? That doesn't mean the one choice. It means the repeated choices. The cultivation and consistency of choices that led to something. Right? We'll take, for instance, somebody who maybe really wants to achieve a lot in their life, but every single morning they hit the snooze bar. They're like, oh, just no, 5 more minutes. That's 5 minutes multiplied by so many days, by so many months, by so many years. They've lost so much time they could have been creating something that they wanted. But they're going to think, oh, if I'd only invested in Apple back then when I had that choice, that's why I'm poor today. No. It was every day that you did not move towards what you want. And as long as you're looking towards your past, you're not moving towards what you want. You haven't even defined it. One of the quickest ways to forgive and move forward, I'm not going to say forget, because things that happen to us in our history, it's not meant to be forgotten or excused or justified. But forgive it by letting go of the anchor it's holding to your life and your choices going forward. And now choose, not how do I get over this, but how do I want to go forward? See the difference? How do I want to go forward? Jealousy keeps us in this place of looking externally and how is it affecting me, instead of how am I going to affect a life and choose the direction I want. So when I say overcoming, it's really more this idea not of battling with or subduing jealousy, right? I think that's what we try to do with our habits and patterns that we don't like, right? Our shadow parts. We try to go in there and be like, oh, how can I get rid of that? How can I conquer this? When you do that, you're giving it all your energy and all your attention. That's like fertilizer. You're only helping it grow. Instead, take your attention into the seeds that you want to nurture, the things that you want to have grow. Put it there. And when you do that and you're not putting more investment into what you don't want, then it falls away naturally as what you do want starts to grow. I'm going to say that again because I see a few confused looks. I was like, wait a second. We got into gardening now. Imagine you've got a garden. And there's certain things you want to grow, right? There's things you want in your life, right? Everybody knows that there's some things you want in your life. And if I was to ask you right now, what do you want in your life? Some of you might be like, I want more money. I want love. I want this. I want that. But even at the core of all of that, it's really the feelings you want, right? You want freedom. You want to feel loved. You want to feel happy and at ease and joyful. Pretty easy to find the unanimous answer of like, okay, everybody wants these things. Then I said, do you want to be happy? No, don't want that. No, thank you. Had enough of that. Right? No, I think we all want certain things, and they're emotions. They're always emotions. They're feeling states, ways of experiencing qualities of life. And so once you know that, then you take that, and it's like you can literally go to your corner store, like Bali Buddha, or here at the Yoga Barn, they've got little things. You just get a little packet of happiness. And you're going to go and you plant the seeds. And by the way, those packets of happiness is when you look around, like the smiles that I'm seeing right now, and you see that, and you're like, oh, thank you, that's a seed. Oh, thank you, that's a seed. Oh, that was a yawn. I'm going to take that one back. Right? He ate the seed. Right? You just take them, and look at how much the seeds just sprouted. You start collecting these seeds of the emotions that you want. Now notice, instead of going, oh, they're smiling. Why are they smiling? They're so happy. I'm so jealous of their happiness. I wish I had their happiness. Oh, I'm not collecting seeds. I'm planting different ones of despair and comparison and competition and sad and jealousy. So instead, be inspired by what you see around you that is a match for what you want. This, by the way, requires an abundance mindset, right? It requires that you realize that there is an abundant amount of that. Anybody here think that there's only a limited amount of happiness to go around? But how many of you think that happiness comes only when you find that perfect loving partner? Maybe some of you, right? Yeah, be honest. Thank you. Right? A lot of us do that. We're like, well, when I find this person, when I get that job, when I have this much in the bank, then I can be happy. Now you made it limited. But happiness, the emotion, the thing you're really after, infinitely abundant. When you realize that, you don't care if somebody else is happy. You're like, great, where did you get it? Can you let me know? I'm on my way. Right? And you can go even further. Maybe it was that somebody brought to a potluck an amazing dessert, and you're like, wow, that was so good. You can go one of two ways. You can be like, oh, they cook better than me. I'm so jealous of them. Their cooking skills. I can never cook like that. Or you say, what's your recipe? Right? There is enough always to go around. And then we start to plant those seeds. Happiness and joy and cooperation, right? And we start to put that into the soil, and it's beautiful. You put it in there, you're like, yes, I put it in there. It's all good, but what if? And this is where the seeds of doubt and insecurity and all the things that we're looking in our past, and we start planting weeds all over the place. And then the weed starts to grow, and what do? You focus on the weed, and you're like, I got to get rid of these weeds. I got to get rid of these weeds. And you're neglecting the thing you wanted. And so it starts to die because you're not taking actions on what you should be doing, or want to be doing, not even should, right? This is happening when many of you, I think, and I know it for myself especially also, we have these dreams, we have these things we really want to do. We're like, oh, I'd like to be spending more time reading. I'd like to be spending more time coming to classes. I'd like to be spending more time being in front of people like this and sharing. Oh, but I have to do this and I have to do that. And we always convince ourselves that we have to do the have-tos before we get to do the want-tos. I'm going to say that again only because it was fun to say. That we have to do the have-tos before we get to do the want-tos. Right? But the truth is, if you're only doing the have-tos, it's like your tank, your engine, is going... And then finally you're like, oh, I finished. Okay, never mind. You're too tired, you're burnt out to go and do the thing you want. So here's a little trick of justification for the mind, because the mind sometimes gets in the way of you getting to do what you really want. Because the mind is based on survival, and it's like, no, you got to do this so that you can pay your bills, and you have your house, and you don't, end up out on the street. Like, you have to do this. And your heart's like, but I want to go play. Great. Listen to the heart every so often, if not more often than not. And go, okay, I'm going to go play because it's going to get me all hyped up and energized. I'm going to be really happy, and then I'm going to come back, and I have the energy and capacity to do what I need to do now. And maybe even it doesn't feel like a need to because it's so easy to do then. And so we balance it out. We nurture and invest in what we want, those seeds. The other things will go away on their own because we're not investing in them. We're not nourishing them with our attention. And that means, and when I say the weeds, the weeds are always what you don't want in life. You don't want your jealousy to end up with you losing something, right? So it's something you're avoiding. And the funny thing is, the thing that you're avoiding is only coming around because you keep pointing at it. It's almost like if there was a lineup of possibilities, and there was like, oh, that would be amazing, that would be amazing, that would be amazing, that would be... I really don't want that to happen. What did you do? You're like pointing at it. And it's like, me? Chose me? Okay. That's what we're doing in life. We're like, I really don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. Mind's going, you don't want that? That's significant to your survival? We'll focus on that, filter everything else out. Now you're not even noticing the other opportunities and possibilities. The inspirations of joy and smiles you could be collecting as seeds. You don't even see them. All you see is the thing that you don't want and what you're trying to avoid. That's you investing in the weeds. When you don't do that, the mind is a beautiful tool because it will focus in instead on what you really want. So I come back again to overcoming jealousy is about reorienting what you do when the feeling comes up. Instead of taking it as, a fear of loss, take it as an inspiration of what can I do to have what I want. Right? And not in a petty drama way that they do on TV. Yeah, I know how those are those little games that people play on relationships. But no. More, there's this quality that maybe my spouse enjoys talking with somebody else because they make her laugh with this and that. Oh, wonderful. You know what? Let me find things that would make her laugh as well that I enjoy doing for her. Great. You take the inspirations, and then if it's something you want. Now, if you have no intention or desire to make somebody laugh, then don't do it. But then why are you worried if somebody else is? This is also a big thing to note. Actually, here's a good example of jealousy I can use from personal experience. Way back, I've been here in Bali for about 17 years. And I was one of the first people to present breathwork here. It was going very successfully, doing very well, and I traveled to Australia, and I was doing stuff there, and I kind of dropped it here. To be honest, I'd gotten a little bored with it, and I wanted to do other things. And then all these other people came in and started doing breathwork, and it got really big. And occasionally I would hear when I'd be in a cafe, and somebody would be talking to somebody, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I went to so-and-so's breathwork, it was amazing. And there'd be this little part of me that'd be like, oh, that used to be me they were talking about. Oh, I'm so jealous of that person, they're getting all that attention. And I was like, wait. I chose to drop it because I didn't want to do it. Why am I jealous that somebody else is doing it? Great! Somebody had to fill the gap. Let them. Focus on what you're choosing. instead of being jealous of what somebody else is choosing. I'm going to say that line again. Focus on what you're choosing instead of on what somebody else is choosing. And that's probably the quickest route for you to get over jealousy. Now, you do that in the moment that jealousy comes up. And in all the other moments, start choosing what you really want. Start walking in the direction of it. Start to really cultivate that for yourself. So you have the foundation of confidence and clarity that moves you more and more towards the things and the actual abundance of what you want. And the more you have that, the more you're overflowing, and there isn't a sense of loss. Actually, you've got too much. You're like, you take a little bit for you, some love and smiles all over the place. Right? And when you really realize that everything that we really want in life is just the emotions, the feelings, those are the easiest ones to choose because nobody else can give that to you. How often are you sitting there being like, oh, I just wish I would get a little recognition, somebody would say something and this and that. And people are like, hey, you're amazing. What are you talking about? You're like, no, I don't want to. Even when people do give it to you, you don't accept it. You have to give it to yourself. The permission to be happy, the permission to feel joy, the permission to feel free, the permission to choose. You're the only one that can give yourself that. Stop trying to prove yourself worthy for somebody else to say, okay, now I give you permission to be happy. That's silly. You choose. And I think I'll end today's talk with that. Thank you, everyone.